Welcome to all of our attendees this morning. We are having some issues out here in Hearties where we are going to be having load shedding in the next few minutes, but it won't be long for our generator to kick in. It is a diesel one, so it does take a little bit of time to start up. But as soon as I do disconnect, it won't take more than 2 minutes for it to then kick back in again. So I do apologize if that does happen. The tip to continually prevent COVID-19 has become a feature of our Toolbox Talks on a Tuesday morning. And it's also very important to realize that not only does it help us to prevent COVID-19, but also other workplace health issues. So washing your hands regularly, using hand sanitizer if this is not available, not having water and soap available, avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth with any unwashed hands, adhere to your social distancing, as well as avoiding close contact with people who are sick, covering your
Apologies, ladies and gentlemen. It seems like the load shedding has now kicked in, so we'll just give Chris a few minutes to jump back on.
Apologies for that. Karim, do you have me back?
Yes. Hi, Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes, I got you there. Karim?
Perfect. Yes, we've lost you when you were going through the COVID rules.
100%. Well, I think everybody has understood the COVID protocols and what we need to do. So let's move straight into our Toolbox Talk then for this morning. We are looking at Safetember. This is Safetember, basically the requirements of what we need to do in terms of ensuring that zero is no accident slogan is always upheld. And so Safetember, as we know from before, we've spoken about this last week as well in our Toolbox Talk, is an FEM initiative. So in 2019, Safetember initiative focused on working at heights as well as the fall from heights, because this is the second most common cause for fatal accidents in the construction industry. And as we mentioned throughout the whole of September, or Safetember as we're calling it, we want to please remind you about the zero is no accident slogan. We do understand that within any industry, there are going to be incidents and accidents, but it is very important for us to believe that every accident is preventable and that an industry with zero accidents is achievable. So for us at IOPSA, we want to say that we can take on the slogan for zero is no accident and apply it to all of our members, all the plumbers out there, and really say that you can educate both yourself and your employees in the prevention of incidents and accidents. And so we're going to use the OHS Act as well as the regulations to see how we can support as well as promote zero is no accident within our working day-to-day tasks. Let's start with the OHS Act. Now, we know that the OHS Act, which was promulgated back in 1993, currently being updated as well, because there are a few things that need to be clarified within the occupational health and safety management system as a whole within the structure for South Africa. But your objective of the OHS Act has still not changed. The objective is to provide for the health and safety of persons at work and for the health and safety of persons in connection with the use of plant and machinery. But it also helps for the protection of persons other than persons at work. In other words, we are not protecting just ourselves who are performing the actual work or using the actual tools and machinery that could potentially cause incidents and accidents. We also want to protect the health and safety of any other person who may be affected by what we do. So this could be our clients, this could be a bystander, or any person that may be around within the vicinity of us during the actual work, and then also protecting the people after the work has been accomplished. So the health and safety is not just when the task is being done. We mentioned last week when an installation of a geyser is put in place, we want to ensure that all the regulations and standards for geyser installations is 100% correct according to our SAN standard and issued with a COC to prevent the potential for incidents and accidents with a leaking geyser, exploding geyser, an overboiling geyser, or anything that could go wrong if the geyser is not maintained or correctly used. So that means education and training, not just of our staff, but also of our clients, is vital, because we do want to protect them against any hazards. And so you can only go as far as possible to educate your clients until they need to then use or operate the installation correctly. We're not saying it's out of your hands, but to a degree it really is. They are going to then use that installation the way they feel best. But as much as possible, can you accept the objective of the OHS Act and also assist in the protection of persons other than yourself when you are at work? And then lastly, it's to establish an advisory council for occupational health and safety. Now, we're going to mention this again a little bit later on, specifically when we look at regulation. So please remember the objective of the OHS Act, because the Advisory Council for Health and Safety is a panel of persons that are subject matter experts within their industry that assist in giving a better understanding of what health and safety principles and actions need to be taken in a specific industry or in a specific area to provide for the matters connected within the OHS Act. In other words, when we look at the different regulations, we see that each one is specific for an industry or each one is specific for an area of concern. And it all relates back to the OHS Act, how the OHS Act's purpose or objective is going to be fulfilled within that area. So, for instance, plumbing is an area of concern. And so subject matter experts, such as institutes or PRB boards, these are made up of professionals within the industry that then give feedback to the Department of Labor, stating what health and safety aspects need to be cared for. And so your input is absolutely vital within the industry. By giving us feedback through to IOPSA, we then know and understand what is our members actually facing. What are you facing on a day-to-day basis that could potentially harm or impact the health and safety of yourself, your employees, or those around you? Then what happens is this advisory council will take the information and promulgate that into a new standard or a new regulation. So let's look at just two sections of the OHS Act, firstly, that affect us completely, because the entire OHS Act basically affects every single company within South Africa. So if you have a company or if you perform any work, the OHS Act is the act that you are going to follow. Now, that is aside from any mine health and safety. So if you're working on a mine, then there is a Mine Health and Safety Act. So because it's an act and it's a standalone, you either use the OHS Act or you use the Mine Health and Safety Act. You cannot use both at the same time. So if you fall in the mine industry, you have to abide by the Mine Health and Safety Act. If you fall into any industry outside of the mine, in any occupation, then you are looking at the OHS Act as your main health and safety legislation. So the first section that we want to look at is the duty of employers. So employers, you are responsible for something in connection with the OHS Act, and that is to provide and maintain a safe working environment. That environment that we spoke about, and I think it has been mentioned before, when we say working environment or health and safety environment, we're not talking about the natural environment, such as trees and plants and things around us, although we do want to protect that to a degree. The working environment is the atmosphere, area, and workplace around us that could have a potential effect on our employees. So the environment will include things like adequate lighting in order to see and perform your work, adequate ventilation and good oxygen so that it's clean air for our employees to work, as well as the general housekeeping, making sure that the working environment that we are in is not going to expose us to any risks and hazards. Then that environment can also be cordoned off. So you could have areas for stores where you are keeping hazardous chemical substances. Within that working environment, you need to be protected in accordance with a specific standard or regulation. So when we're talking about working environment, that could also then move toward your vehicles. Because you use your vehicles to drive to and from a work area, that work vehicle essentially becomes a working environment as well, because you are operating a machine or operating a vehicle in order to perform specific tasks. The next thing that Section 8 of the OHS Act states is to provide and maintain safe plant. So any plant that is being used, as well as systems of work. This includes identifying, assessing, and controlling hazards. Now, when it comes to risk assessments, we've discussed this many, many times. It is a legal requirement for every company in South Africa to actually perform a risk assessment based on all tasks that are performed in a company. Now, there are three main risk assessments. And for those of you who are on the Prime course that you are busy doing, if you finish the first three courses within this next a few weeks, you are going to be then adding on to the next three modules or the next program of the Prime course, which is moving into HIRA. Now, we know that the first three courses were maybe a little bit more simple and a lot of the information you already knew, and we appreciate your feedback in that. Many said it was a good reminder of things we already know. But the next course is going to be a little bit more tough. And the reason for that is we have to delve into the identifying, assessing, and controlling of risks and hazards within our environment. And so those next three courses of Introduction to HIRA, HIRA for plumbers, as well as doing a continual based risk assessment is going to then impact on what we are actually doing within our company in terms of risk management. So those three risk assessments, you're going to be looking at baseline risk assessments, issue or task-based risk assessments, as well as the overall continuous-based risk assessment. These are things like planned task observations or daily safe task instructions. And we explain to you what they are and how you have to complete them as well. We're also going to give you some templates so that if you don't currently have them within your management system, you will have that available as well. We encourage you to please send as many people within your company as possible for that course. Remember, it is free to our OPSA members. So send even the person who's doing your accounts and not actually going out to site. Give them an understanding of risk management. Allow them to do this course as well. It's going to broaden their aspect as well as support your overall goal of helping to keep a safe environment for your employees. The next thing is to provide information, instruction, training, and supervision of employees. Now, those four items are broken up into four management systems. Providing information could be something as simple as a document that is policy-based or procedural-based to help an employee understand what they need to do in terms of health and safety. It could also be a sign to say no smoking, no entry, wear hard hats, wear safety boots. Information signage can be all over. But instruction then goes one step further. That is to specifically detail what must be done to keep the task safe. And these instructions can be done through Toolbox Talks. It can be done through safe working procedure talks. It can be done through the discussion of the risk assessment program. Then we have training, both in-house and external training. In-house training, for instance, how to use your basic set of hand tools for a plumber. External training, like getting firefighting or first aid training. And then finally, supervision. This is to ensure that the employees are working in accordance with your safe system of work. Supervision goes a long way to ensure that what is said to be done is actually being done. Then to ensure the safe use, storage, and handling of substances or any articles that you may be using, providing adequate facilities. Adequate obviously is a broad spectrum because we do not understand what is adequate for one might not be adequate for another person. So adequate facilities based on what your requirements are within your company. And then consult with employees as well as health and safety representatives if you have them within occupational health and safety. Now, the second section or second part of the OHS Act that we want to look at, although out of the 50 sections of the OHS Act, we're only looking at 2, we can see very importantly how zero is no accident is coming across, because there's the objective of keeping everybody safe is really a focus of both of these sections. Section 14 is the duty of employees. Now, employees, you are required. It is your responsibility to take ownership of your own health and safety. And that is to care for your health and safety, as well as the health and safety of others who may be affected by the things you do. You must cooperate with your employer or any authorized person on behalf of your employer on all safety matters. You must obey health and safety rules and procedures laid down by your employer. Then if there are any unsafe acts or unsafe conditions, you please must report any of this to your employer or if you do have an appointed health and safety representative. And that is the same with any incidents or accidents. So if you are involved in an incident or accident, you must also report this to your health and safety representative. Now, the as soon as is practical basically means within that day or by the end of the shift, not when it is practical for yourself, but the definition of practical in this term is by the end of the shift or as soon as possible within that time frame. All right, so those are the two sections of the OHS Act that we wanted to discuss. And that is really supporting zero is no accident. But if it does happen, we are asking you to please ensure that you put those protocols in place to prevent future incidents and accidents from actually happening. Now, there have been questions from our plumbers out there in accordance with the regulations saying, why are there so many regulations? And which ones must you as a plumber adhere to? So there's questions like, which regulation outlines what plumbers must do? Well, we know that there are 21 regulations that support the OHS Act, and each one supports the zero is no accident slogan. And the reason for that is each regulation helps us to understand that a safety aspect or a safety system must be put in place in order to protect employees within an area of work. So we're going to look at this. But before we do, in terms of Section 44 of the OHS Act, now we're not going to read Section 44. Section 44 basically says that the minister may incorporate into this act, so into the OHS Act, any standard or regulation that they feel necessary. So they may incorporate anything. Incorporating means taking in, containing something as a part or a whole, or to include. All right, so they may use any standard, any specific regulation, even if it's a part of a regulation, to support the OHS Act. All right, so it becomes a supportive regulation. It doesn't supersede the OHS Act, but within its area of scope, it supports the objective of the OHS Act. And so it is anything that is deemed necessary for the protection of persons in terms of health and safety. Again, supporting the overall objective of the Health and Safety Act for South Africa and pushing forward to the initiative of zero is no accident. So let's take a look. Which one is applicable to you as a plumber? Well, as we mentioned, there are 21 regulations. There's the asbestos regulation, certificate of competency. There's the construction regulations, and many plumbers actually do work within the construction industry. And so you have to have the OHS Act. And then if you're working in the construction regulation or construction area or environment, or even performing construction works as defined by the definition of construction work, the construction regulations have to be adhered to. Maybe not all of it, but to a degree, parts of them will affect you. Now, why do we say that? Because if you're in construction, then the construction regulation should affect you. Well, there's many parts to the construction regulations. For instance, in the OHS Act, we just read of the duties of the employer and the duties of the employee. Now, not everyone in the company is an employer, and not everyone in the company is an employee. You see, there's two specific areas. You'll have one person or a few people who are defined as an employer, depending on how your company is structured. And then most or the majority of the persons within the company will be structured under their employees. And so the employees do not have to adhere to Section 8 of the OHS Act because that is the duty of the employer. And so you can see that the employees will adhere to what is applicable to them within the Act. It is the same within any regulation. Within the construction regulations, not everyone on a construction site is a client. Some will be contractors. One or two, or maybe a few more, will be principal contractors. And some may be subcontractors to additional contractors or a direct contractor. Depending on what area or what scope you're performing, a different part or different section of that regulation will affect you. So can you see the need for a legal register? And we've discussed a legal register before. Basically, a legal register is a register of all the acts, sections of the act, and each regulation that affect you within your company. You will then note down every single section that is applicable to your company within that legal register and why it is applicable to you. Now, the reason why this is so important is so that you can see, first of all, that you are adhering to all the regulations, you're not missing anything out, but it also gives you clear guidance on the way forward. Because your whole management system or your safety file should essentially be structured around that register. So for the rest of us in the industry, if we are not plumbers, well, the general administrative, general safety, facilities regulations, all of these are general acts that will support any company to assist general safety or general administrative. Even if you have a facility, a company where you are performing work within a work environment, then that regulation will affect you. So can you see the need for these advisory councils? Because remember, one person cannot know everything. That's why the objective of the OHS Act is to establish an advisory council so that these subject matter experts within a specific industry and who specialize in that area of safety can assist in designing regulations for the standards that we follow. That is why we can incorporate just certain parts of a regulation into the work that is being done. So if you're using hand tools, if you're using power tools, there will be a different part or a different section of a regulation that will impact that. So it is really, really important that you know and understand which parts of these regulations actually do affect you. Now, there is that final question, which often gets asked by plumbers. So which one must I adhere to? Please know that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to health and safety. You have to take into consideration everything that you do as a company, not just within an industry, but what you physically perform as your day-to-day tasks, which means one plumber may not have the same legal register as another plumber. Even though you are still both plumbers, one plumber may work only in corporate environments or private homes. Another one may work in private homes, corporate, as well as the construction area every now and then. So can you see the difference for the regulations that need to be adhered to? So please, when sharing documentation, make it specific. And we encourage you to share documentation. If you have templates that are working for you, why not share them? Health and safety should become everybody's responsibility, and we should all strive towards zero is no accident. So instead of looking for just one regulation, incorporate all applicable regulations into one complete management system. That's what we should be doing. There's your one size fits me within my own company. It's a management system that is specific to my company. And yes, you can use templates in order to design this, because a template gives you a structure of what you should be implementing, but the information and the application of that information should be structured so that it is specific to you. Now, if you need assistance with that, obviously, IOPSA is there to assist you. We've got basic safety files, template documentation that we can give you, but maybe more is needed on your side. And again, IOPSA can assist you. Even OHSS can assist you. And many times we can do this at no cost. We often want to give it to you as free as possible or as cheap as possible. But if you do need the assistance, obviously what we are going to do is consult and then just give you that information free of charge via email. So we can tell you what structure you need to put in place. But we do need to have your feedback. So please get in touch with us. As you can see, the numbers on the left-hand side or the email addresses on the left-hand side. Some have said that their emails are not going through to safety@IOPSA. Please remember, some of them are coming back to you. And when we come through to your offices, we notice that you are sending it to safety@iopsa.co.za. That is the incorrect email address. You must use safety@iopsa.org. That is the only way in order to contact the safety department at IOPSA. And then if you want to get in touch with OHSS Consulting directly, you can use the info@ohss.co.za info email address rather, or you can get in contact with us. Phoning is very difficult on 071. We have had many saying, well, we can't get a hold of you on the phone. We do apologize. We are super busy on sites and in meetings or even on training modules all the time. And so calling us, we don't often get to call you back. But if you send us a WhatsApp message, Even if it's a voice message, we don't mind. We can then listen to it at any given time. So please use that WhatsApp message available. That's 071-875-2070. And then, as always, for any of our SIOSH members here, you can get your SIOSH CPD point for every single Toolbox Talk that you are joining throughout the week and months. And then for the Plumbing Industry Registration Board CPD points, you can get 1 CPD point for the entire month of Toolbox Talks. That's joining all 4, because you get a quarter CPD point for each of the Toolbox Talks. Now, carrying on with Safe Timber, as well as the safety thought of zero is no accident, we are going to look at the ergonomics regulations, as well as ergonomics risks and hazards, and how we can zero is no accident slogan the ergonomics regulations as well. What can we do to protect ourselves as well as our staff? So thank you very much, Karim. We're going to hand it over back to you.
Thank you very much, Chris, for this informative session. I believe there are no questions from my side or the attendees. Is there anything you'd like to add before I end off this?
Once again, just a very big thank you for the support, as well as the overwhelming support for Prime. We know that you guys are very eager to move over to the next courses as soon as you've done the next one. So when you've done, each of the courses, we are going to allow you a specific amount of time. That's just in accordance with making sure that we also check Prime and give it to you 100% accuracy. So it's not wholly completed at the moment, but definitely the next sections that are coming this month, we really want you to take advantage of HIRA, especially looking at risk management within the plumbing industry. So we look forward to chatting to the plumbers throughout the next few weeks on that as well. Thanks, Karim.
Thank you very much, Chris. And thank you to everyone who attended this morning. I'm going to go ahead and end the session now.